An eight cent.
Yeah. That may be the next challenge.
Some street cred.
So does it cost a lot of money to
Like,
learn it?
like paying cash or-
What did you do the
Sure.
last time? Wow.
Now, that's not what other people do, but
You are so on the support.
Sitting there, oh, family. Feet.
so.
June is doing something.
So I.
Library thing is tomorrow.
Big,
Yeah,
and
tomorrow.
it worked out well, yeah. So now I'm being convinced. I don't know if anyone's running, but.
I think.
I'm gonna-
So then take longer.
Not yet. It is, yeah, filing is August of next year.
August of next year.
So.
It's at 10 o'clock.
To raise.
What's gonna happen?
If anyone sees those papers, I'll know about it.
Long meeting.
Files. But if someone does it really went off, they're going runway.
Sure, yeah, they would have to start doing it sometime like April, because they need to get their group together, the committee and everything.
Yeah, it's maybe to do it right. I mean, unless I don't have the feel like I have, which is like.
I think you have been doing really great. Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoy it. We have our, like every single day.
You think right there?
All of those things that we have to
They're on
do.
camera.
Having trouble waking up that early.
Yeah, no, for the Tuesday meetings.
For you, are you
No, we're not.
run it?
I am actually running for state assembly. I term out. Yeah, I term
Past
out.
11 almost every time.
It's
And
coming
sometimes
along. I
past
mean,
12.
I'm learning so much things. So
Yeah.
I just managed to, at least now I know, because we had to do signatures in lieu of paying the filing fee.
Oh, nice.
So we started really late because I didn't find out about it until much later.
Who's in trouble
But
with
I actually got,
Brian
I
is
got
trying to start with
611
the police
out of,
contract?
and I wanted 1,000. They wanted 1,000. The other part was around. So we got 611.
I know, I said the same.
So that's just, it cuts it down by
Want me to move?
percent.
I can move.
Then it gets down.
You're not on camera.
Well, I
Filing fees are $1.
Well, I
Yeah,
heard
I'm
that.
happy
Per
to.
signature, so the
I'm
total
happy
was
to.
1,227 and
Oh, yeah.
I would have to.
Negotiate.
I would certainly have to pay, but if I could use it to like.
I don't, yeah, you're right.
Okay. We're gonna get started.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sir, you're here.
Oh my God.
Talking about you the whole time. Like your favorite mayors, right here.
Okay.
Supervisor Lee, I thought I was.
Oh, shoot. Oh, my God.
All right, on that note, Mayor Koo, I will call the meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. Welcome, everybody. President Margaret Abikoga is traveling, so she won't be able to chair tonight's meeting. So as first vice president, I'm stepping in. She's still hoping to join us on Zoom and make comments during the president's update. So I'll look to our executive director, Shali, to let me know when she's on. But we'll get started. Thank you all so much for being here. She's on, perfect, thank you. And so let's start with roll call, Shali.
Ann Bybee. Present. Hung Wei.
I'm the alternate, Sheila Mohan.
Sheila Mohan. Sally Meadows.
Here.
Stanley Mock.
Present.
Rob Rennie.
Here.
Carmen Montano.
Here.
David Elahi.
Present.
Mark Turner.
Here.
Margaret Abikoga. Pat Showalter. Lydia Coop.
Here.
Sergio Jimenez.
Here.
Kathy Watanabe.
Here.
Tina Walia.
Here.
Larry Klein.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we will do public comment on items not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public here who would like to comment on agendized items, or Shali, is there anybody online?
Uh, 3 people online, but their hands are not raised.
Thank you. Okay, we'll keep going. First item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have approving the minutes from October 12th and also approving our financial reports that ended September 30th, 2023. So if no one wants to pull these items, I'll look to a motion to approve the consent item.
Second by Klein.
I did not catch who.
Sergio, San Jose.
Okay, I'm going to, oh, we don't have to go.
Everybody's here, so we can just go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Okay, next we will have the president update and we'll go straight to public comment for Margaret to give her update.
Hi there. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm not there in person, but I just wanted to call in and actually the items I had are going to be covered later, but just to thank you all. I think the big news is that we have formed our JPA, or we have the number of cities we needed to form the JPA. So I'm very excited about that and just want to thank you for your support, and I'm very excited that we'll be moving forward and have been able to accomplish this big project that we've had for several years. So thank you for that. And the other item I had was about the holiday party, so I'll save that for later. So just wanted to say thank you, everyone, and congratulations to us all.
Margaret. Any public comment, any other public comment on the president's update? Thank you. So with that, we will move to item number 3 with our guest speakers, and we are fortunate to have 4 guest speakers with us this evening. And we will start with our supervisors, Supervisor Simidian and Supervisor Lee. Thank you both so much for being here. As I mentioned to both of you before the meeting started, we do not have a description of what you'll be talking about. We want to give you an open floor to talk about whatever you think the Cities Association and the representatives from all the 15 cities in your county need to be aware of. So it's a county update. And of course, if there's anything you would like to partner with the Cities Association on next year as we move forward, we would love to hear that as well. I do have your bios. I think everyone in here knows both of you well, but I will do it for the record. I'll do brief introductions, and I'll start with Supervisor Lee. Supervisor Lee serves District 3 on the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, which represents Sunnyvale, Milpitas, and the northern neighborhoods of San Jose, including El Viso and Berryessa. Supervisor Lee also serves as the Vice President of the Board of Supervisors. He is an intellectual property attorney, retired U.S. Navy commander, former Sunnyvale mayor and council member, and father. Supervisor Lee lives in Sunnyvale with his wife, 3 daughters, and their family rabbit. What's the name of the rabbit?
Velvet.
Velvet, thank you. He was elected to represent District 3 in November 2020. Welcome, Supervisor Lee. Let me also introduce Supervisor Simidian, and I will leave it up to both of you to decide who goes first. Supervisor Simidian represents the 5th District, which includes Cupertino, Los Altos Hills, Los Gatos, Montessorino, Mountain View, Palo Alto, Saratoga, Stanford, portions of San Jose, and unincorporated communities in the Santa Cruz Mountains. He was elected to the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors in 2012 and re-elected in 2016 and 2020. And there's just so much more to Supervisor Simidian's resume, but I will turn it over to both of them now to update us and share whatever they want us to hear about tonight.
And I'll follow the lead of our senior supervisor, of course.
I'll follow the lead of our vice president. Don't do it, Adam, seriously.
All right, thank you.
Well, first of all, good evening, everybody. Many friends here that I've known for many, many years. And a few newer faces, but most of you have worked with, I have seen the last 12 or 24 hours. At the SVC last night, we've got a few new faces right here as well. Thank you for having us to speak with you at the Cities Association meeting. Having been a member here as well when I was serving on Sunnyvale City Council, and that was like half a life away. That was, gosh, I got off Sunnyvale City Council, I think 2011. So that's a good 12 years ago. And so still very much city issues are very much in my heart. So we're in Sunnyvale and just spent a good hour today talking with our mayor on Sunnyvale issues and as well. One thing about the county is that a lot of people honestly don't understand what we do on a day-to-day basis. They understand what the state does, they understand what the city does. And the federal county is like this weird duck that in the middle that a lot of people just don't understand what to do. Because all of you in the cities working on this, they understand how important the role of the county is. In many ways, I would say one best way to explain it is we are really the administrator of trying to see how to spend a lot of the federal and state money in the specific area like public health. Like the hospital system by far is the most highest budget items. Our budget is over 11 billion this past year, which is a lot bigger than some states' budget, actually, believe it or not. So, COVID, what we've just gone through for now 3 years, and, all the testing, all the vaccines, and all the trials and tribulations we've gone through, certainly it's been an interesting time for me when I first joined the county in the middle of all that. I'm glad to say that, we've now, evolved through all that now. Even though there's still remnants of people, the anti-vaxxers, the lawsuits still going on, and there's still issues, whether showing masks or not masks, you still hear those things. But at the end of the day, I certainly think that our county has done a hell of a job. Getting over 91% of our residents, vaccinated, and that was a huge feat the past cycle. No small feat to thank our healthcare workers, our nurses, both at the VMC, O'Connor, St. Louis, and also all the other hospital systems that worked so well together. And now that we've kind of gone through that COVID era, of course, there's still so many issues that we are working along. Like for example, with Larry today, we spoke for a good 40 minutes on health issues, right? Where to find the funding, who does the abatement, for example. Where do we put the folks, and also our shelter. We've got the shelter they county run up in San Jose and also in Sunnyvale as well. And RV parking, we find those are all the issues that our county and city have to work together to try to solve. And then I always tell people I really love my job. I just hate the volume. It's just so much. Right? But one thing both me and Joe here are really spoiled compared to you guys, and I'll tell you is that we have staff. That's huge. And unfortunately, we really could see. I mean, can you imagine what one staffer would be helpful for each of you all, right? By able to do your job, but not having that is tough. So I would advocate you go back to city manager and really try hard to get that allocated in your budget. That would be awesome. But in the meantime, by having the staff, I certainly have enabled us to do a lot of great work. Like myself, I even have my chief of staff right here, Wendy Ho. And I may often say I felt like she's my boss because she'll be telling me where to go, what I need to do, right? And making sure that I stay on schedule and get to the right places and don't forget things. But so that's something I would say that being at the county level, in this case, San Jose City Hall, right? That they have that staffing is crucial, not luxury, but really is crucial to get the work done because there's just so much going on. I mean, with Joe, as you could heard, how many cities that this district covers, right? And for us, even though we have only 2 cities and a portion of San Jose, the number of issues that we deal with is not any less complicated and complex. So we've got Veterans Day coming up this coming Saturday. As a veteran myself, certainly one of those issues that are very near and dear to my heart. So this morning, I was able to have a press conference over at this place on 10 Kirk Avenue. If some of you have not been to it, that's the place I certainly encourage you to go visit. You can go now, but I think it'll be nicer in about a year or so after we can get the place renovated. We're in the middle of trying to get this piece of land. What it is actually a veteran homeless housing for temporary housing for those vets who needs help. And that's been operating since 2009, so it's been about 14 years now. And it's really done tremendous work. Over 16,000 veterans has been served at this one site. It's been owned by the Swenson for all these years, and they are paying, I think, something like $60,000 a month on rent, which is significant. So one of the things that when I got into office 3 years ago, they asked me, hey, is there a way that the county could actually take this over so we could actually work together on these funding that we're collecting and pay rent that could be used for veteran services? And that let's work on this. And as many of you know, the $950 million Measure A funding that we had raised back in 2016. We're able to grab the very bottom, like last 16.5 million or so. We were able to use that to purchase this piece of land. So the ink is supposed to be drying. We voted on it back in September. Oh, yeah, so we're expecting the deals to be signed. And so that we will be able to not only renovate the site because it feels like the 70s when you walk inside, but also to look at the site. We're planning to take out some of the older buildings and have the opportunity to build some real buildings for permanent supportive housing. So both permanent and temporary housing for our veterans, having VA on site, having the veteran services office on site, to make sure that these are all working together. So we're very excited about these type of work. And I want to thank my colleague, Joe Smidian, for his support. And the other things that maybe Joey could talk about if you want to, because he also led the initiative on 2 other veterans ideas. One on the dental services, and then the other one is increasing the staffing of the VSO, which he asked me to join him, and I'm truly honored. And we also got votes to.
They're saying they're not seeing you fully.
Oh, I'm sorry. To take that approach so that we are going to be able to help. A lot of people don't know we have over 64,000 veterans living in our county. That's a huge number of folks. I mean, you think about it. We have had so many military bases in the Bay Area for so long. Right? I still remember days with my grandfather going to visit the Oakland Army base where we shopped at the commissary. I was 7 years old. Way back, right? We had the Oakland Naval Supply Center. We had Moffett Field used to be a naval air station. Remember, Alameda used to be a base where we have aircraft carriers, piers, and all those plus got cracked in the last 20 to 30 years. So since then, I mean, a lot of folks still live here. So that's why we actually have a pretty high number of veterans living here. And so the services that we need, and then we actually have an event this past weekend over the Mexican Heritage Plaza to honor our veterans. And I asked, like, who served in Vietnam? A bunch of people raised their hands. Who served in Korean War? There's still a few. So I said, who was Second World War? I was joking, right? One gentleman raised his hand, like, oh my goodness, we have a Second World War veteran actually there. And he was actually at Iwo Jima as one of the Marine Raiders, right? So, I mean, we really have a lot of veterans here. That's in our community, yes. Also, especially the Second World War, we really need to recognize them. I mean, so many of them are we're losing them so quickly these days. So it's something that we need to mark. So something that I'm very proud to say as a veteran, I'm able to push forward for a lot of these issues for our vets. I just want to also say a little bit about the Veteran Service Office. If you've never been there, don't know where it's at, it's actually right on the across from West Valley Mall. So it's Westfield Mall, and I would urge you to pay us a visit to look at the place. It's a really friendly place for our veterans, and we give so much services. Of course, we need more people, so we are trying to get more folks hired there soon. Other areas we've worked on, I just want to bring up. One thing that I'm very big on is this whole gun violence, gun buyback stuff. And Sunnyvale has done a good job back in, I think, 2018 and 2019. I think a couple of gun buyback programs that was very successful. And then, of course, during COVID, things kind of stopped. And then we looked around, and of course, we have our really tragic shooting at the DTA right? If many of you recall, and that kind of prompted the idea of thinking, you know, what can we do to try to take some of these unwanted guns? We know out there taking these guns away. These are all guns that people want to get rid of, but they don't know where to turn it over. So I kind of started this idea of doing gun buyback. So we did one in Milpitas first. We did one in Morgan Hill last year, and was able to take back about over 700 or so pieces of guns, and it's amazing what you got, right? You get some old rifles from Second World War, First World War, obviously some handguns, but what's really exciting, you got like 24 of these assault style weapons. One Uzi looking thing, a bunch of those AR-15 types. But my favorites are the 7 ghost guns. Those are ones that is really like a Motley Crue. Some of these are like made by 3D printers, no serial numbers, like ordered from the internet and whatnot. There's 7 of those. But my absolute favorite is the double-sided barrel sawed-off shotgun. We only have one of those. That's the one I pick when I play video games because it's very effective in the game, but they absolutely don't belong in our community. So getting that was like my happy moments. Oh my God, we got this off on the streets, right? So very glad that took place in those places. And this year, so we're trying to push it in different parts of our county. So there's one now scheduled in early December, going to be led by our sheriff, Sheriff Bob Johnson, come on board. He's very supportive, working with the East office, working with the city of San Jose as well, to have it at the Reed Hillview Airport. So that would help cover some of the east side San Jose folks to make it easy for them to get the gun buyback. So that's something that I'm very big on supporting. And in addition to having the event, we always do give them the gun locks so that because of them, when they sell the guns to us, they probably have other weaponry as well. So having the gun locks is always helpful. I'll tell you some funny like factoid I've seen. When I was in Milpitas, I remember there'll be like folks coming in on the truck, and there's a husband and wife type situation. You can tell the wife is smiling and the husband has this scar face. So you know who told who to go get the kids turn back in. And of course, we decided to pick December, early December date, thinking that hey, this is holiday seasons, right? People are strapping money, and if they could actually get the funds to buy presents and get rid of something dangerous, is a double benefit, right? So we're looking forward to that event coming up again early December this year. Let's see, we talked about the guns issue. We talked about the veterans issues. We have the shelter on the different locations we have on the farm house communities, and a couple of the projects that's really exciting, of course, is that at the grand opening, I think Supervisor Siminian was at in Palo Alto, the home key project that we worked together, again, led by Supervisor Siminian. He's been a champion for coming up with ideas. So I lived in this thing called a CHU when I was in Iraq. The CHU stands for Container Housing Unit. So basically turn a container into a housing unit. In Mountain View, we have that successful project right now for the past 5 years now. And basically similar projects, why don't we do more of that idea to have lower cost, quick build to house folks. And we, Palo Alto finally getting the 88 units, right? That was got some really good press on. And thanks to Supervisor Siminian's leadership, and we partner on trying to come up with some funding that the county would help give them some money, and then we've got Sobrado to put in $5 million apiece on these projects. So we're very excited about that. I know there's one in San Jose that's coming up as well. Unfortunately, as we all know, home key fundings are drying up. So if you don't have projects already in the pipeline, it's very likely that that money might not be coming through with the state budget. But we certainly are trying to find ways to find. We have been talking about permanent supportive housing, but even the short temporary type housing is certainly something that's very much needed in the community. We've been really working hard on this mental health, drug addiction issues, trying to increase the number of beds, both on the acute care, but also step down one level below, because it turns out during our RAND study this past year, we've identified that that seems to be where the shortage of housing is, because if the acute care folks who can step down have nowhere to go, get stuck in the acute care system, and that's of course very high cost. So in order to empty up, so we need to open up more beds. So we've been working hard on that. And of course, with fentanyl these days, the issue of substance use treatment becomes so much more urgent, because instead of people dying overdose, usually having drugs for years, people are now dying the first shot. Like first time we've heard, this baby crawling in the home, but because exposed to fentanyl, even died from getting near them. So it's really a game changer. So one of the things we've done a lot is trying to get those Narcan, which is like an antidote, kind of a syringe type situation, stick it in the nose and pump it in. And we've been giving those out to our schools, our jails. And we are now also pushing to get those in the libraries and also maybe bars and restaurants, just basically where everybody gathered. I try to make those available into vending machines at schools, free vending machines, so that we try to get as much broad distribution as possible on these Narcan kits. But in some ways I would tell people by the time we need Narcan, it's too late. Right, because of the fact that there is so much fentanyl in our communities that is very dangerous to young people, and so there's a lot of education we need from schools, and we certainly have worked hard, but I still think there's a lot more work that we need to do to help fight the pandemic. And one other thing I've been pushing forward, we're trying is this mobile opioid drug treatment type of a van. There's one apparently delivering like methadone to various places in San Francisco that seems to have brought more people into the system to get the treatment. Because to me, I felt like if the drug deal is everywhere, we really need to make sure that we'll be able to provide these treatment to folks in more places than the fixed locations. Right now, we have 3 fixed locations in our county that's doing it. I'm certainly hoping to be able to find ways legally to get that service being delivered to more places where the need is. So yeah, those are the type of things we work on in the county, and certainly have been honored to have served this past few years. Looking forward to learn more from what you guys need from the cities as well, because we really are partners in many ways, work together to solve these problems. And then I can turn over to my senior colleague, Lydia.
And members, we will have questions after both supervisors go, so if you want to go for questions.
I want to take a slightly different tack and say thank you, of course, for inviting us, but I want to sort of highlight the fact that District 5, the district that I represent and which we are sitting, is a little different from the other 4 supervisorial districts in a number of ways. As you heard when Nisa was reading off our districts, there are 15 cities and towns in the county. And if you divide that by 5 supervisors, that would mean 3 cities and towns for each supervisor. My district has 9 cities and towns. And so one of the challenges, necessities of representing the 5th district is a willingness and ability to really try and understand the community cultures of each one of the 9 different cities. And, I have to tell you, I think our county is, and some of you have heard me say this before, a little San Jose centric. And I don't mean that in a critical way. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, because I tell the folks in the smaller communities that I represent, hey, they do have 1 million people, half the population, and it is the county seat. And by the way, that's where the greatest level of need for many of our county services exists. So that's not an attitude thing, or it's a real thing. But where it does end up having, I think, an unfortunate consequence or result is that I think for a lot of folks at the county, they think the other 14 cities and towns are all the same. You are defined by being not San Jose. And so I have to say, well, no, actually, I represent Cupertino, and it's a very different place than Mountain View. And actually, I represent Saratoga, and it's a very different place than Palo Alto, and on and on and on. Because all of you know, as locally elected representatives, each community has its own community culture, its own political culture, its own expectations about what's normal or expected or not. The housing politics is different from place to place. People's expectations about what services are provided. Just to make it more complicated, some of those communities have county libraries, and I sit with some of you on that. Others have municipal libraries. Some of you use your own local police forces. Some of you say, no, actually, we're going to contract with the sheriff's department. So it really is incumbent on the next supervisor. So I'm about to encourage you all to make sure you talk to the candidates to sort of have a plan for how will he or she get to know the 9 different communities and represent them well. Because, you know, I had the benefit of having served on the board before, having represented many of these communities in the state legislature. But if you're just walking in the door as a new supervisor, it's unlikely your experience would have really led you to understand all of these communities. And so I just think it's a thing you all might talk about, since all 15 cities, including those 9 cities, are here. And again, I really do want to encourage you to kind of put the candidates through their paces. Easy for me to say because I'm termed out, but put the candidates through their paces in terms of making sure that they really do understand and are prepared to respond to the different dynamics of each of these communities. When I said San Jose centric, again, that's important in terms of the concentration of services. And to put the flip side on it, it's important in terms of the absence of certain services in the 5th supervisorial district. Let me give you just one very critical example, and I apologize to Otto because he's had to hear this for a number of years already. But county has, you know, roughly a dozen health clinics and 3 hospitals. And there are 5 board districts, as you all know. The other 4 districts all have at least 3 or 4 hospitals and community health clinics that, county health clinics that are county facilities. 3 or 4 in each of the other 4 districts. Pop quiz in the 5th supervisorial district. How many county hospitals or health clinics do we have? That you want to hold that up for everybody as a visual aid? Okay. Here's my virtual PowerPoint over there. Thank you for that. 0. And you can make the case, and I think it's an accurate one, that the level of need is perhaps less here than it would be in other districts, but I think it's pretty hard to justify 0. And the county's been here 473 years. So, you know, it's not like this hasn't come up before, but here we are 173 years later without a health clinic from the county. Now, that has real consequences in terms of the impact of that missing ingredient on people of modest means who are trying to hang on by the skin of their teeth, by their fingernails, by whatever cliche or metaphor I can come up with here, in the cities and towns that I represent. And I have been, some would say bold enough, some would say tactless enough to just say to folks at the county, if it's the policy of our county to gentrify my district, you all need to just say so out loud and then be honest about that. I don't think it is, but I think that is the net result of not providing any of these services. Let me, now that I've brought everybody down, let me try and, you know, bring everybody up. So we now have under contract a property on Middlefield Road, right along the border of Palo Alto and Mountain View. Technically, it's on the Palo Alto side, but it's right off San Antonio Road in Middlefield. So it's easily accessible for Los Altos Hills, Mountain View, and Palo Alto. Certainly Sunnyvale close by. Anyone who wants to hop off 101, you just kind of take the San Antonio. And that's going to open as the county's first health clinic in our 173 years in this district sometime next year. The reconstruction of the facility is underway. Now, a further challenge of the district, and again, I'm sharing this not to be a complainer, but because I want to encourage you all to talk to the next county supervisor about this, is the shape. We've got some North County cities, and then we hang a left and we go down to the West Valley side, where now I've got 4 of the 5 so-called West Valley cities, plus a piece of the Almaden Valley. Now, if I'm talking to somebody in Cupertino, they're probably gonna say, actually, Middlefield Road in San Antonio and Palo Alto Mountain View, that's not all that convenient for me. So don't we need something in the West Valley, even though it's the same district? To which I would say, yes, we do. And fortunately, when I was out making noise about the need for a health clinic, Patrick Aarons, who many of you know from the Foothill De Anza Community College Board, shot me an email and said, we've got some space at the De Anza campus. Would you ever give some consideration to locating a county health clinic there? And, I thought free land, and I remembered my mother's words, which were, honey, if it's free, take one. In fact, if it's free, take 2. That's what she told me. So I'm thinking, okay, what can we do on that De Anza site? And we are now well on our way towards planning for the possibility. We still have, how this is, 1 million steps to go, but we've already signed the letters of interest. We've already done the feasibility study. Both our board, thank you, Otto and colleagues, and that board, all five have said, we think this is worth pursuing. And sometime early next year, we should have sort of a moment of truth about, are we prepared to take the next steps in the West Valley? But, if we have the political will to do it, we will end up for the first time with a county health clinic in the 5th district and a second one on the way by the end of next year. I think that's a good thing. Now, that leads me to say, one of the things that is important in every district, and I've seen Otto certainly do this, but when you have 9 different cities and they're mostly smaller, the partnerships that we have are really immensely helpful and important. Because if I show up complaining, I was going to say whining, but that's a little harsh, complaining at the board and saying we need a health clinic, I need your help to make my colleagues believe that's true. I need you to be on the phone, in the Zoom meeting, at the chambers, shooting them an email saying, hey, I represent folks in that community and they're telling me we don't have what we need. Because otherwise it's just me complaining to my 4 colleagues, none of whom represent the same constituents. And so there's a, real political dynamic there that any of you who are in cities with district elections know is real. So I have tried very hard to try and make sure that the folks in the area that I represent and the entire county, because I have this sort of dual responsibility, right? I know that there's greater need in other parts of the county, and I feel I have a responsibility to address that greater need. By the same token, I know that if I don't speak up for the folks in my district, nobody will. So I got to do that. So I'm a big believer in a program called Alcove, which is sort of a mental health, I'll call it the beginning of the continuum of care as opposed to the acute care. We have literally the state's first alcove in Palo Alto, coincidentally on Middlefield Road, coincidentally a couple of blocks from where I grew up as a high school kid, coincidentally a block away from the 7-Eleven where a cop pulled a gun on me and said, hold it right there. That's another story for another time, but I thought I'd get your interest. So, but then at the other end of the continuum of care, we know we need those acute care beds for kids who are deeply, deeply at risk. There literally was not such a bed anywhere in Santa Clara County, private or public. Somebody called it to my attention. 9 years later, because nothing moves fast enough in our system, we've got 3 stories of steel already up. And, we think within the next 18 months, we'll have those beds for kids so they're not being shipped to Sacramento or Vallejo or Sonoma County or wherever. So there's work to do in the healthcare arena because Otto and I sit together on the Health and Hospital Committee. Some of it is bread and butter clinics. Some of it's more creative, like Alcove. Some of it's more substantial. I mean, this is a $400 million plus project that we're talking about at Valley Medical Center in terms of the acute care beds. But these are things where, we need partnerships because, as I say, if I just go pitch it, well, Otto will believe me because he knows I'm good to my word. But, I have to make sure I persuade all of my colleagues. And you're really indispensable in that effort. If you think that you're not, I want to reassure you, you really are. It makes a difference. On the housing front, I will quickly say, I'm guessing from the conversation you've already had, you already have come to the conclusion that housing is a regional challenge, not a city by city. Even for a city the size of San Jose, you know, what happens in the rest of the county and the rest of the Bay Area and the rest of the state has an impact on each one of our communities. So I have tried to encourage my constituents and the councils with which I work, with whom I work, and the board to think of this as a regional solution that we have to find rather than to be too parochial or provincial about it. I don't want to get into the housing politics of 9 different cities and towns, but sometimes you have to. And I'll give an example because I'm looking right at NISA, so I can. You know, we had a piece of property there and NISA said, you know, that old Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District property, that'd be great for some housing, wouldn't it? And I said, yeah, but you've got a tough town. And she said, I think if we do it right, we can do it. And I said, okay, let's figure it out. And when the county sat down with folks in Los Altos to talk about what an affordable project in Los Altos would look like, everybody said there was a 3-2 split on their council. And, you know, I told our staff, I think if we do it right, we can bring everybody along. And people were a little skeptical, NISA will recall. And part of doing it right was the city staff in that case said, please don't use the streamlining tools. You can do that, it's legal, but it'll rub people the wrong way. And then we'll lose the opportunity to develop a real consensus for housing. And so we said, all right, we'll do it the conventional way. We'll take our time. And there was a 5-0 vote for a project that literally almost doubles the total number of affordable housing units in Los Altos. And it's the single largest all affordable project in the city's history. These things are doable is my point. But they, again, require these partnerships between and among our cities. I think some of you know, we've already started construction on a teacher housing project, which was a personal passion of mine on Grant Avenue across from the really ugly courthouse that's there. And it's going up, and we've got half a dozen different districts in northern Santa Clara County and southern San Mateo County who are going to participate. It had the added benefit, once it was under construction, of doing what I hoped it would do, I wasn't sure, which is a bunch of other communities said, hey, what about us? You know, hey, we got the West Valley, we got schools, we need teachers, we just, and so sure enough, you all started lobbying me, and I'm thinking, this is great, keep telling me, because then I could turn to my colleagues on the board, and I did, and say, hey, now I got people in the West Valley who want the same thing for their schools and their kids. So we have identified a site on Wolf Road in Cupertino. We have a unanimous board vote to make the first project on that site a teacher housing and educator workforce housing project. Because I know I'll be gone, I said, hey, Otto, wouldn't you like to be my co-author on this so that you can get stuck with finishing it up? And he said, I'm in. No, seriously, you need partners, you know that. He said, I'm in, and he has been, and we're going to announce the developer for that project sometime in January. And we've already started to have conversations with a dozen school districts in the West Valley. And in order to get Otto, he said, well, we can call it a West Valley project as long as you say West Valley broadly defined. So it is West Valley broadly defined, which kind of means we're not going to be too tight about, you know, who participates in the project and benefits from the project. But my point is, you know, I know you all are getting beat about the head and shoulders on these housing issues. They're all doable. I think you know that. It takes leadership, and it takes a willingness to say, how can we partner the right way with the local community? And it takes support from all of you when it's time for the county to be the lead. Sometimes it takes support from us when you're going to be the lead. Fair enough, but it's doable. The Life Moves project that Otto referenced, yeah, we saw what Mountain View did and said, you know, there ought to be a dozen more of those. And so we went and did what we thought was a $25 million challenge grant. It turned out to be 40 million, which was fine by us. And I have to say, Palo Alto and San Jose were able to step up, but I'm frankly disappointed we aren't getting more people accessing that pot of money. And I know you've all got, you know, stuff in your cities and your districts about why it might or might not make sense for you, but I kind of feel like everybody thinks these are great things to do that somebody else ought to do. So what I always try and do is say, well, can we all take a piece of the problem? And that's what we're trying to do on this one, is say, San Jose can't do it all, but if we throw $4 million into the kitty, that helps. Same with Palo Alto. Palo Alto can't do it all, but if there's some philanthropy, some state support, some city support, and some county support, I think we can get there. Two last things. One is just real quick, because I know you all like free money. We did a program for all-inclusive playgrounds back in 2017, 2018. And said, let's do $2 million in each of the 5 supervisorial districts for matching grants to create all-inclusive playgrounds. Some of them are called Magical Bridge, some of them are the Rotary Play Garden, some of them are different brand altogether. Sunnyvale is up and going. Mountain View, I think we're having a groundbreaking sometime soon. I can't remember. Maybe Margaret knows. But it was so popular that immediately people wanted to do a second round, so we did. And now a little time has passed. We had that COVID thing that kind of got in the way, but we're teeing up a third round. And I think that there will be an announcement about that sometime in the next few months. We've already preliminarily approved it at the board level. And it's an opportunity for cities and school districts to access a little bit of extra county funding so that you can say, well, if we had some charitable donations plus some county funding plus some city funding, that might be enough to really take the next step. Last thing I'll say is every district has its land use issues. For me, they were Lehigh Cement Plant and Quarry and Stanford land use. I feel good about the fact that during these last couple of years, we were finally able to wrestle both of those to the ground. For those of you who don't know, the Lehigh Cement Plant Quarry is now closed. It will stay closed. We have a legal agreement with the owners of the cement plant that it will never open again. And that has, I think, come as a sigh of relief. Somebody just today said, hey, congratulations. And I said, well, it only took us 100 years. So, there you go. Stanford land use is important, I think, because you all face the same dilemma. And I'll close with this. People say, well, it's a marvelous institution. And it is. People say it's essential to our valley. And I think it is. People say, don't we want to make sure it can continue to thrive? And I think we do. And then you say, but if they're going to develop 3.5 million square feet, that's probably going to mean some housing impacts, some traffic impacts, some open space impacts. And we have one of 3 choices. They can mitigate their impacts, or the surrounding communities can pay to mitigate their impacts, or we can leave the impacts unmitigated, which means traffic gets worse, housing gets worse, and open space gets swallowed up. As I say, I think most people would agree, marvelous asset for our region, want to see them thrive, but expect full mitigation of any impacts. And I think that's going to be the key to successful development, large and small, in every one of the communities in our county going forward, which is we're going to have to turn to people and say, we welcome you as long as you're prepared to fully mitigate your impacts. And with that, I'll say thank you for bearing with me while I went through some of the things that are high priority, and look forward to your questions.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fletcher, can I just read a text from Councilmember Abe Koga?
Yes.
She said that the magical playground groundbreaking is November 29th.
I'll be there.
Thank you. And thank you, Supervisors Simidian and Supervisor Lee. It is such an honor to have both of you here in person. And for me, it really underscores the value of the Cities Association to have you here and to have this discussion. So really, thank you both, and thanks for your leadership. And Supervisor Simidian, we could not have gotten to 5-0 without your leadership and support. So every time I see you, I have to thank you. So thank you again. So with that, we're gonna open it up for questions for both supervisors, and I know Javid, are you okay? Okay, so Mayor Bybee.
Excuse me, could you speak a little bit about the, excuse me, the closure of Mission Oaks mental facility, and what, if anything, can the county do to keep that facility running or prohibit it from closing?
I'd like to start. We both have some experience with this.
Either. To me, it's a facility that is much needed in the community.
And why don't you tell everybody what you're referencing, because not everybody's going to know.
Mission Oaks is a mental health facility that's part of Good Samaritan, I don't know what they're.
Located in,
Located in Los Gatos, San Jose border.
and those 20+ beds have been lost because Good Sam has said they no longer want to operate those beds, that facility with those beds. And
So what can the county, if anything, do to?
Well,
I know that the
yeah.
county has purchased other hospital facilities.
still under discussion is the answer to the question. Not very satisfying, I know. I thought we might get people's attention if I used the words eminent domain out loud at a meeting. So I did. We did. I got a phone call very quickly thereafter. Our county executive, who used to be our county counsel, James Williams, I thought had a very good observation, which is, well, if you're prepared to use eminent domain, I think we might consider it for a different property than that one, because that one has some real problems. In other words, it's not a shining asset. The beds are critical. I take your point. What I would say we are doing meanwhile is trying to create more beds as quickly as possible. So I referenced the acute care facility that will open up in a year and a half. But as I said, it's taken us 9 years to get to this point. It takes a long time. And Otto made a point that I want to underscore, because I think he made a really good point, which is it's not just about having the beds, it's about having the beds at the right level of acuity in terms of making sure that the care is appropriate to the need. And now Otto should be bragging on himself more than he was, because he played a really critical role in the creation of new beds just across the street from the Valley Medical Center in a facility that got repurposed. So I'll pivot to him and let him tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the facility that Joe referenced is over on 650 South Bascom Avenue. That is just, we have ribbon cutting about, 2 months ago now?
Yep.
And frankly, even since then, we're still getting some licensing issues. Momentum Mental Health will be running the facilities. And those are not the acute level, it's actually the one step down level, intermediate level care, which is the ones that we have the most need in terms of shortages of our county. So we're very glad to see that space being open, because as you know, the difficulty of these spaces is not just finding a location. I mean, that's always difficult if you have NIMBY issues. When you say I want to have a mental health place, you can imagine the residents next door, they all, you got protests, whatnot, right? Just like building unhoused living sites. So the fact that we're able to not only have the space, but also getting the approval from the state, that's the other area which is difficult. The California Department of Health, where they have very stringent regulations on hospital facilities, getting those approvals, that tends to be very difficult. Go back to your questions earlier, what's going on in Mission Oaks? We tried, we look at those things. At the same time, we also realize even if we access eminent domain, it's still not going to work, because the fact that it's multi-stories, how are you going to take over one part of a building, but not the whole site? And the fact that the conditions of the location, when we really looked at it, they weren't that great. So what our staff was able to locate was over in the San Jose, former San Jose Clinic Hospital down by 13th Street area there. There will be beds that we've been working on, which will have more than what we'll miss in Mission Hills eventually. So that's the trade-off, is having those other beds that we're looking at opening.
And Otto, not to bring even more gloom and doom to your question, but just to make sure everybody's mindful. I know many of you are familiar with Momentum for Health as a mental health provider. They've just announced that because of some, quote, reforms at the state level in the CalAIM funding, that they're going to be shutting down programs that serve as many as 600 clients. That's a lot of folks. Meanwhile, we've got an agency right here in this area, CHAC, that has been financially challenged. Our county was able to sort of toss a lifeline to them in the June budget. CHAC is in the process of trying to reimagine their structure. They have an APA, something you all know a bit about. Sorry, couldn't resist. They're trying to figure it out. But without naming names, I know of at least 2 or 3 other mental health providers who I think are teetering right on the edge in terms of financial viability. I think this is a coming crisis if we don't jump on it pretty quickly.
It's really unfortunate because if we don't have work, it's an underserved population and it's getting worse. Thank you, Mayor.
Go next.
Another question. So, thank you, Joe, for your enlightening initiatives. So on the health clinic side, you mentioned mental health, but what about substance abuse? Will those clinics also address those issues? Because those issues, the substance abuse issues, are really causing a lot of social ills.
Carmen, it's
society.
it's
So
an
you can
interesting
address
issue.
that.
Half a dozen years ago, more, our county, like most others around the state and indeed much of the nation, made the judgment that it was time to integrate mental health care with substance abuse care. And we now call it the behavioral health department. And part of the reason for that was that in so many cases that you all experience in terms of people on the streets, they're quote co-occurring conditions, right? There you got. I think people are re-examining whether or not that worked out the way that we hoped it would, thought it should. I don't mean they've reached a conclusion, but even literally just at our last meeting that Otto and I were at, Supervisor Chavez leaned in to say, I'm not sure that substance abuse issues are getting the attention and resources and expertise they need. I think she's worried, and I don't presume to speak for her, but I think as I heard her, what she was saying is, I'm worried that that mission is getting lost in this larger behavioral health arena. So that kind of reevaluation is starting to take place. I candidly don't think it's likely that they're going to get pulled apart again, but it could be that there's a recalibration to say, wait a minute, let's make sure while we're doing that, putting together, somebody didn't kind of get elbowed off to the side.
Yeah.
Otto, I don't know.
That's great. No, I'm glad that you're reevaluating that, because I think when you talk about mental health, it doesn't include, but now I know you're saying it also includes substance abuse, because that's a big problem in our society. Okay, great. The other question I have for you is all-inclusive playgrounds. Can you enlighten me about what's the difference between a regular playground and an all-inclusive playground?
And I've become a bit of a passionate advocate on this subject, and now, Carmen, you're stuck with another story. So back in 2011 or 12, the Magical Bridge folks came and said, we would like the city of Palo Alto to step up and provide a site and some funding for a playground. And we would like then State Senator Joe Simidian to write a letter to the City Council of Palo Alto and tell them how they should spend their money. And I said, well, I try not to do that because my experience is that my partners in local government aren't all that wild about hearing from me about how they should spend their money, particularly not when I'm writing as a representative of the state, who isn't always as forthcoming with funding as the state perhaps could be and should be. So I was disinclined to do it. Eventually, I was persuaded to do it, and I tried to find a way to write the letter to the city of Palo Alto that in effect said, I know you have many hard choices, but I really think this is a worthy program, and I hope you'll give it every consideration. The city did just that, and they ended up funding an all-inclusive playground, which is to say a playground that really serves everyone in the community, regardless of their level of or the nature of their ability or disability. So not just, and this is a sort of an important caveat, not just folks who have ADA issues, wheelchair accessible issues, but a whole range of things, including folks who are on the spectrum, dealing with autism, whatever. What happened is that more or less simultaneously, folks in San Jose were doing the San Jose Rotary Play Garden. The folks at Magical Bridge were doing the one in Palo Alto at Mitchell Park. And I can't speak as much to the San Jose experience, although I think it was somewhat similar. The one in Palo Alto was suddenly overrun. And I mean that in a good way. I don't mean in a bad way, but people came from not just all over the county, but all over the Bay Area, all over the state, and even from abroad to take their families, not just kids, but their families to this all-inclusive playground that really had a range of facilities that served kids. And so every kid loves it, but for some kids, it's the only way they're going to be able to access a playground that works for them. And so once I saw that popularity, I thought, how can we grow the movement? I mean, if I had told you 50 years ago that we were going to have curb cuts at every corner, you would have said, doesn't seem likely. Took longer probably than it should have, at least in my view. But, the world transformed. So I'm hoping this is transformational over time. By putting out the first 10 million and then the second 10 million, we've got a couple of dozen of these projects now around the county. And now everybody's saying, oh, well, yeah, if we're going to do a new playground, we ought to make it all inclusive, which is exactly what I was hoping would happen, that this would be catalytic. So now a third set of programs, and I know about the Cities Association, but I'm also a former school board member. So I'm pitching that the school districts should get in the game, because I think that's another place where obviously there's a lot of recreational activity and there are a lot of play structures, and not all of them really are 21st century in their perspective about what the needs of kids and families are. So I'm hoping we're going to do this third round. Otto and my colleagues on the board have been supportive thus far. And if we can, then that will give you all a little incentive, and it will allow you to go to your managers who are going to tell you, oh, it's a tough budget time. And you're going to say, yeah, but if we put a little of our dough in, then we get some money from the county, and we could also then leverage some community funding, and there you go. So that's the plan.
Thank you. And then also, you mentioned about school districts, Stanford
Land use.
housing. So I'm wondering, why can't school districts, because they do have a lot of land, is there a law that prohibits them from building housing
No,
for their
but
teachers?
as land use adjudicators, you all will, I think, get what I'm about to say in a heartbeat. So if you ask yourself, where are most, not all, but most of our, let's say, elementary schools located? Well, they're in the heart of single-family residential neighborhoods. Now, the community has typically viewed that open space as their open space. So if you roll in and say, wouldn't you like to see some housing? Eliminate your open space? The answer is not so much. And then in order to make it really pencil out, you say, well, and wouldn't you like your single family neighborhood to suddenly have a 5-story building towering over your single family homes? Well, not so much. So I would, I want to engage the school districts as much as possible and make them part of the solution. But I think they have some challenges, which is why I thought, we had an underused site in Palo Alto across the street from the courthouse, an acre and a half, and it had an 8,000 square foot kind of ratty old building on it. Okay, that was a perfect, and it's surrounded by 4-story buildings. Great, let's put up a 4-story building consistent with the neighborhood. That's a little easier than rolling into a elementary school and saying, let's take away the open space and let's go up in a single family neighborhood. So it's tougher.
I'm glad you put that in perspective about the open space. Okay, and then I have one more for you.
And that's it, Mayor Montano. We're gonna move on after
Okay.
your question.
Okay, yeah, I'm not.
No, go ahead.
So I really do support home keys, but as you know, in Milpitas, we've been having a lot of problems with the drug abuse, the murders or rapes, and it's not, I mean, even just to say it, it really bothers me, but the problem, I've created a stakeholder group that includes the residents, the business community, and also the tenants. However, what happens is you have people that keep repeating offenders and they're still in there. I think that in order to really make that a livable, peaceful place, you have to get rid of the bad apples, but there's so many laws that prohibit that. So how can you, the county, help with that? Our police officers go there on a daily basis, our fire, and it's draining up resources from our city. So we really need to come up with a solution, because we want the tenants to be happy. We want to make it a positive thing, but it's that screening process, and I hear that it's the state, then I hear it's the federal government, and then I hear it's the county. So we got to come up with something.
And Gareth, I'm gonna expand on your question to give both supervisors an opportunity to incorporate final comments on how we can move forward and partner together as cities and the county. We all followed the discussions over the summer about the huge deficit the county was facing, and I was very happy to read that Supervisor Simidian and Supervisor Lee, and I think all 5 supervisors said they weren't gonna cut critical services because of course all our residents rely on this. I think of the PERT program where we're able to partner with the county. So to Mayor Montana's point, you know, there's certain needs in our different cities that we would want to partner with the county on. So if you could address her question, but also expand it about as we move forward, how can we better partner together to address these needs in our cities?
Oh, well, hold on there, because now that you're mentioning about a deficit, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. Then these wraparound services that the counties are supposed
If
to.
you want to talk about
providing-
deficit, you should be talking to audit.
Okay, go ahead, right.
No, I'm teasing.
No, I mean, I think we work very close together regarding, so the issue is not home key. Home key is a great thing to have the funding to build the things. Once you build it, even though you come up all that money to build them, right? Get the money you spend, it's not the end of the Holy Grail. The movie doesn't end there, but you have to put people in there. And the question is the process of how individuals are being selected for these housing units oftentimes are not the right people for that. There are other places in our county system that's probably provided they have mental health issues. That's where they need to go and not just go to, for example, apartment supportive housing where there are very little supervision. Yes, when we say talk about wraparound services, the level of services is very different depending on which project you're in and what operator are. So I would say personally, I think with this specific project you're talking about, the reason why we're having so many issues has a lot to do with either the wrong person being placed in there to start with, number one. Number two is when that this placement takes place, how long it will take for somebody. I mean, finally, like this one case where we've worked with you closely, that somebody domestic violence with police on board and got arrested, and it still takes like.
And it comes back.
Right, and it's still afterwards. He finally got, he's gone now, but it still took like 2 months, I think, right? To get him.
No, about 6 months.
Something like that. So it's one of those situations where I think we absolutely need to do better when it comes to the placement, to make sure that
That's the
the
key.
biggest thing is we're not so much just evicting them of space because we're overlapping these housing laws, right? There's housing laws, protection for tenants. But then when it comes to some of these issues that we're dealing with, those laws doesn't really work that well. And I mean, sometimes I always tell people, life is like dating, you gotta try it out for a little bit. If it doesn't work, you should be able to end it sooner. But if you make them sign these 12-month leases, right? Well, technically they were 12 months, so after say a month and a half, like this thing's not working, trying to evict, you go through the same eviction process. So that's what part of the problem that we're facing. And of course, there's other just operate error, right? With the entrances and about how with fire exits and of course.
Yeah, but that's minor. The
Yeah,
real
it-
issue is how do you get rid of the bad apples that are causing all the
Right.
chaos?
And so I think,
If I may, first, just for the record, my wife doesn't let me use dating analogies, so I'm not gonna go
okay.
there. But I think, and I'm glad that Margaret Abekoga can hear and participate remotely because I want to give a compliment to Mountain View. We have a homeless shelter that we stood up at my instigation, literally a block and a half from where we're sitting right now. And we had to come in front of the zoning administrator, literally in this room. And the hearing took 11 minutes from start to finish. And the reason it took 11 minutes is because we did the work that we should do before you show up at the meeting. And you all sit in your meetings and you know this. Some people did the work before they showed up and some people don't. And if you don't, it's going to be a mess. So I would encourage all of you when you're dealing with the county, with the nonprofit providers, to sort of put their, hold their feet to the fire at the front end of the process. Because as you're commenting, if you don't start it right, it's probably not going to finish right. And related to that, and now this is a little bit problematic, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is, and the housing providers and the staff need to give people real answers to hard questions. You shine people on, they get cynical in a hurry. You tell them the truth, and then they got a follow-up question, and you answer the follow-up question. And so I know Margaret and Larry know, and Autumn knows the Crestview, which is right here on the, it's a motel conversion on El Camino Real. So, very close to the border of Sunnyvale and Mountain View, and all hell broke loose when it got announced. And when the staff tried to respond to some of the questions that they got in, frankly, a kind of a placating way, I kind of leaned in and said, you need to be candid with people about what this really does entail. And then you need to have an answer to the follow-up question is, what are you going to do to manage it? And, if we do that, then I think we will make, over time, we'll make the community more accepting of these projects. But if they think you're shining them on, or that you're not really answering their questions, I don't think we should be surprised that they react the way they react, and it becomes harder and harder to cite these projects.
Right, and my recommendation, if the cities that are going to have key, I think you need to really, it's a good thing. But just make sure that all the pieces are in there, the screening process and all of the, make sure that everything, you do the research first.
Well, and Larry, I don't know if you were on the council when we were citing the Hamlin Court project. Planning Commission. But it was Tara Martin-Milius who leaned in, council member, some of you know, former council member, and I remember I was in the chambers at the time. Supervisor, it was in Supervisor Cortese's district, but I was sort of leading that effort. And Tara was very direct. She said, if all you're going to do is put these people on the floor, I can't support that. If you're going to bring them and give them services and case management, then I can support it. So she was like right up there and said, Joe, I need a commitment if you want me to be for this. Fair enough, and so we honored that commitment, and that shelter, which is now, more in Otto's orbit because he's now representing all of Sunnyvale. But compared to what it was a decade ago when it was a Quonset hut and people threw down their sleeping bags on a cement floor, it's a whole different world. Is there room to improve it? Yeah, and Otto's doing really important work to try and make it more family friendly, more kid friendly. But compared to what it was, and part of that is because a council member leaned in and asked a hard question and made me go back to the county and say, hey, they want to be supportive, but they can't be supportive if we don't do a good job. Let's go.
And Supervisor Simidian, on that note, we're at time. I'm sure we could spend 3 more hours talking about each case and each project because of course we're all interested. But I do want to thank both of you again for being here. I should go to public comment. I see we have our Mountain View Council member, Emily Ramos here. I wanted to recognize her as a member of the public, but do we have any comments, public comment on this item? So thanks again, supervisors. We will move to our next guest speakers. And as I introduce, and Supervisor Simidian Lee, we're gonna ask you to vacate your chairs so we can have the new speakers join us at the table. You're more than welcome to stay and listen in.
It's all right, but if the pizza disappears, you'll know what happened. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we're gonna talk about TK. You sure you don't want to stay?
No, Brown Act violation.
Full time. Do you want us to go over this side? How do you want us to go?
Wherever there's empty seats.
And as they take their seats, I'll do the introductions and I'll start with Wendy Mahaney Gurahu.
You got it.
Okay, great. Project director, and I'll read her bio as well. She's an education and childcare advocate consultant with 35 years of experience in that sector. She leverages her expertise in leadership development, advocacy and public policy management, executive coaching and strategic planning to support various organizations and initiatives that aim to improve the outcomes and opportunities for children, families, and educators. Currently, she works with First 5, Santa Clara County, Educare California at Silicon Valley, Parents Helping Parents, Silicon Valley Community Foundation, Early Intel, and Build the Future. investing in childcare for a stronger economy as a consultant and partner. Next, we have Angelica Ramos Allen. Where's Angelica? Thanks for
I'm
being
handing out
here.
presents.
See you. And everybody knows Angelica. She's a political and public policy professional with more than a decade of experience in strategic planning, policy development, coalition building, project management, and program implementation. She currently serves as lead policy staff for children, families, and special projects for Santa Clara County Supervisor and President Susan Ellenberg, where she has experience in creating public policy and has successfully moved coalitions to bring millions of dollars of investment into local childcare workforce and infrastructure. She also serves as the Deputy Director handling operations and strategy for Build the Future, a community-led project advocating for affordable childcare in Santa Clara County. And the third speaker, unfortunately, we did not get her bio, but I did look her up real quickly, and I'll just do what's on LinkedIn. Thanks for being here, Mansi. So Mansi Kathuria.
Oh, yeah, it's Mansi.
Mansi
Yes,
Kathuria.
You say them pronouns.
Okay. Thank you. And Mansi is the Associate Director of Health and Care Policy and also associated with Build the Future. So welcome to all three of you. Thanks for being here. I'll turn it over to you, and then of course we'll open it up for questions after. So I don't know who wants to get started.
Well, our 40 under 40, Miss Allen, is gonna kick us off. She was just nominated and received the award, so we're pretty lucky to have her in the childcare sector. She also has an infant.
So I
which is
definitely
helpful.
said in PowerPoint, but I'm also happy to pull it up myself if I'm able to. Or okay, how do I cast over here?
I'll send you a panelist.
Oh, great, wonderful. So so thank you for the wonderful introductions. Sorry, it was not as brief as we thought. But and thank you all. It's good to see most, I know most of the people in this room, so it's good to see you all, and thank you for spending your Thursday night before a holiday weekend together here. My name is Angelica Ramos Allen, and I am, with Build the Future, and I'm here to talk about a little bit. I'm going to start about the beginning. Wendy's going to take it up in the middle, and Muncie will close out with a call to action. And so we are here to talk about. I'm going to get on the internet real quick, but we are. So Build the Future is a project that is fiscally sponsored by Educare California at Silicon Valley. Educare is a nonprofit organization in the Santee neighborhood of San Jose. And our mission is to advocate, educate, and organize around public investments in childcare. And the reason why we're talking about this is mostly because, this started with a bunch of partners, which included my boss, President Ellenberg, the County Board of Supervisors, Maria Noel Fernandez, the Executive Director of Working Partnerships, and the County Office of Education, and all of the people that we normally see in the early education sector. However, we also have partners like the San Jose Chamber of Commerce, Joint Venture Silicon Valley Leadership Group, the Bay Area Council, because we've decided that we need to have a discussion with people who don't normally talk about childcare and early learning opportunities in how it affects our economic development. So this project is about a year long, maybe a little bit longer, to kind of like I said, advocate, educate, and organize around public investments in the economy. Were you able to send that over?
Yeah, but you know what, I just realized I can share my screen.
Perfect.
Oh, that's perfect.
Let's do that.
Perfect. It's hard to multitask, right?
And you just tell me when you want me to.
Yes, you can start with the second slide, because that's where I'm about to go. So the reason why we decided we wanted to share with everyone is that the Council for a Strong America in February of 2023 released a report that the fact that we did not have affordable infant toddler childcare cost the economy $122 billion a year. And so, and we're in the process of trying to get like the disaggregated data for like your cities, right? Because that affects us, you know, on every level, national, state, and then local. And $122 billion is a lot of money. You know, I think that the number came together around workforce participation of parents, mostly women, but also men. My husband is a stay-at-home dad. And our baby is adorable, but she probably needs childcare. So I think that it's really important that we highlight the problem that we're trying to solve for, right? And the problem is that we are losing money by not investing in childcare. And so that's why, you know, businesses, labor leaders, nonprofit organizations, small businesses are coming together to basically have this discussion about childcare. Next slide. And so what we're basically trying to do is to grow our audience, raise awareness on how affordable, accessible, and quality childcare can improve our economy, our community, and boost our economy for everyone. And I have given out some of our collateral. It's basically all of the numbers and information that we're citing. And so we just wanted to come and talk to you because we know that you are the drivers of our local economy at this time. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to let you know, I'm actually here on my, I can't believe, on my outside time. So I'm not, I mean, while I work for Supervisor Susan Ellenberg, I also work for Build the Future. You need to have like multiple jobs to make it in this world. So here we are. And I'll hand it over to Wendy.
Thank you. Angelica also is a perfect example of women in the industry trying to find childcare and can't find it. In fact, she can afford full cost or ish, and there is nowhere for her to go.
3 jobs.
So EJ is at home with dad in this particular case. This is not unusual. You all know Angelica. I mean, this is a perfect person to speak on behalf of childcare and how it supports the economy. We're gonna find EJ a spot because she needs childcare and dad needs to go to work. No, I'm just kidding. But it's not just one thing. So we're gonna talk about how childcare is more than one thing. I know folks may think about it in a certain way, and in particular elected officials as yourselves, and we just did school boards last night. How we think about childcare has often been, well, you have the kids, so that's your issue. It's not our issue. It's not the job of the city. It's not the job of the county, and it's not the job of the school districts or the feds or the state. When in fact, if we think through how people go to work, compare other infrastructures to how people actually get there, childcare falls right in line. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to read a few notes because usually this is Susan's part of the show, and so I want to make sure I hit the notes that she has, and then certainly we'll pass it on. But we believe, I think next slide. We believe and know we don't even have to research this anymore. Please don't ask us to do it. We know that childcare is seriously one of the best investments in it from an anti-poverty point of view. Putting folks back to work, in particular women, absolutely changes the economic situation of the family, of the city, and the community at large. We also know that this topic keeps coming up around economic development. When joint ventures released the State of the Valley, and they were talking about what's going on, what is the biggest issues going on for, in our case, families, but certainly businesses too. The things that kept coming up, and you're not going to be shocked, is cost of living. And what kept rising up are the 2 things we already know: housing, and number 2, childcare. I'm not sure if you all know, but if you have an infant in Silicon Valley and want to put your child in infant care, it's going to cost you $30,000 a year. That's the UC tuition. If you have twins, God bless and good luck, because it's $60,000. So, and then if you have a school ager, you're going to put another $12,000 on. As you can see, the math is starting to not work. And then you're thinking about housing. So when we talk to Silicon Valley so certainly all of the leaders that we knew that this is a problem that we have to bring to everyone. We have to bring it to business, we have to bring it to government, we have to bring it to the education system to figure out how are we going to solve this. So some of the data, these are just quick data points. Some of the data showed that 72% of all adults in the Bay Area consider the cost of living to be, quote, extremely serious. But the number jumps to 83% when you only ask parents of young children under 5. In that group, 95% believe the cost of living is a serious problem, and the strong majority name unaffordable childcare is a major factor for that seriousness. Right now, as we all know, certainly when we did our redistricting process, each district area has lost from 400,000 to 370. We know people are leaving the Bay Area, and who are leaving? Young families. That's who's leaving. I'm the vice president of San Jose Unified, and I can tell you that our school district numbers were 31,500 before the pandemic, about 18-19. We are now at 26,400. We are the largest school district. We're a large urban, and it is that we know exactly where they're leaving from. And it is working families. It's the ones who don't qualify for childcare, but can't afford full cost or can't find it. And so then that's our workforce. They start leaving. So this drop in population is something that we know cities and counties take seriously. We know that all of us think about, in particular, if people aren't in our cities and in our county, they're not buying goods, they're not using our schools, they're not paying taxes, they're not running small businesses. These are the things why it is truly the job of the city and of the county and other entities, business too, in a public-private way, perhaps, to solve this infrastructure issue together. I would say that in the pandemic, we all kind of figured out childcare was something. I think it became one of those watershed moments where parents were home all of a sudden going, whoa, I've got kids here. What is going on? And so what happened in our field in the county of Santa Clara, we had about 2,000 childcare providers, and we were still considered a childcare desert, which means there wasn't enough childcare. 600 childcare providers closed their doors in the pandemic, and they have not opened up. And we're worried about another rash of them closing. That means also there are 2,000 families in Santa Clara County who have a voucher for free childcare, and they have nowhere to take it. No one is there to accept it because, one, they can't afford the state reimbursement rate if you are a provider that's open, or two, the slots are already full. We also have a little issue around TK. We're going to let the school districts figure that part out because they took a 4-year-old program and did half day or 3/4 day and didn't remember that parents work. So who's going to do the after school TK program with 4-year-olds? And the childcare on site is like, I don't really think we want our 4-year-olds with our 6th graders. It's really just not an appropriate setting. So that wasn't really thought through at the state level, although we love that at the time, Senator Joe Smithian did the TK bill. That's his jam. We're totally happy about that, and we still have to figure it out. So the simple goal that we think about is, how do we make Santa Clara County one of the best places in California to raise families? I mean, in the end, that serves everyone. Well, for us, certainly we think that the things that we can work on are retaining our families. But that's going to take addressing 2 very big things: housing, which you all just spent hours. I just sat over there thinking, wow, this is perfect. We're going to just go right after 1, 2. Housing, and then childcare. I will also say, I love the fact that the cities and the county are really starting to work together. We were just this afternoon at the City of San Jose's Neighborhood and Children's Services. It was a joint meeting between the county and the city talking about children and youth and the master plan in the city of San Jose. The county has already kind of broken through and created a children's office and have done quite a bit of work. In fact, they have put forward, I think it was $10 million for a couple of programs during the pandemic, an apprenticeship program, which the city of Milpitas was the first and only city to join in childcare. And I know you shepherded that through, and we were very grateful. And a shared service alliance for childcare. The other thing the county has done is invested $15 million in facility development, which all cities have been eligible to apply for and everyone else who has had the opportunity to do so. I think they are oversubscribed. As you can imagine, 15 million sounds like something really good. And then we get into the real facts of the matter that folks have to rebuild their childcare and they have to operate for a minute while they don't have kids there. So we're really excited that the county did that, and to see at the meeting today, Supervisor Chavez and Arenas talk with certainly our city of council members, Deb Davis, and of course the Omar, and I forget all of them that were on today. Who else, Angelica?
Councilmember Candelas,
Thank you.
Councilmember Duan, Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you. Talk about this in a real way and talk about that the city also needs something like the children's office, which the county has with Sarah Duffy, and how those city and the county can leverage each other in these issues. Childcare sits right there. I mean, it sits there, but it also sits in economic development. We can think about how children are fingering their way through our budget cycles and our budget areas. And certainly Build the Future believes that in a very, very deep way. So let's see, I want to make sure. So let's make sure that cities know that this is actually the job of the city. Childcare's facilities have to go through the permitting process, which is often very difficult for women-owned, very small micro businesses. They have to get site approval and work with fire marshals, licensing. Certainly they work on economic development around how do they do their taxes, which they have no support for. They could use our chambers and certainly our own economic development agencies if we did some specialization. These pieces are the communities, the life of our community. And that really is the goal and the gift of why we all get elected. We want to have our cities a thriving place. And this is one of the ways that I believe we have to do it. And I think we know, and I won't go too far into it, but early investments pay off in every conceivable direction. High quality, publicly funded childcare is one of those. You pay early and you invest early and it pays off. It's one of the best investments. In particular, if you do, let's just use a family childcare home. If a family childcare home is serving 12 children, it's a micro business, it has 2 employees, and it's allowing 24 people to go to work. So you think about quality kids, and the return on investment for children in quality care later on in life is $13 to everyone invested. So you're getting the return at 13 to 1, you're getting 24 people to go to work, and you have a small business of 2 running. I don't think you can get that on the stock market, quite frankly, but those are the things that we know are really important to keep talking to folks about. We also know, and finally, is that the permitted use of ARPA funds, one-time dollars, made it really clear that childcare is infrastructure, even at the federal level. So if the feds can talk about it and put it in, and I would make one other little pitch. When we went through the pandemic, childcare providers, in particular the city of San Jose and in the county and other cities as well, but we're already on the line taking care of firefighters, police officers, health and human services. Childcare workers were taking care of their kids so they could go to work, and they weren't classified as essential workers. I mean, it's kind of a funny thing. They're taking little kids with sneezes and snotty noses in a pandemic, and they're not considered essential workers. They are essential workers. And so we have to keep the momentum going forward, that they are classified in the same category of our workforce. So then the next slide. Okay, I'm going to just do this, and then Monse, you're up. We have this project of Build the Future has been really thinking through how do we bring everyone in one way or another. And these are just some of, I mean, we couldn't squeeze any more on this slide. Some of the folks from the varying different sectors that are part of our work. I want to point out Genentech, and also it's not up there, is NASA Ames. Also some of our founding members as well. They have provided childcare for their employees for quite some time. So has Google, and so is Patagonia. There's organizations and businesses that see the value in it. However, it's not the build the future's position that that's the only solution, because it becomes a little bit like healthcare. If you lose your job, you lose your childcare. Or if you're at the case of Google, folks that are working in the cafeteria, contracted services folks are not eligible for their beautiful, I've been there, childcare facility. That happens in lots of places where folks are providing it for their employees. Last but not least, before we turn it over for the ask, there was an executive order, there is an executive order, and then from President Biden, and then a direction that all semiconductor organizations that apply for the CHIPS dollars must provide childcare for their employees. Okay, well, what does must mean in a it's been very enlightening. We've been working with Applied Materials, we've been working with folks in our own valley around what does this mean? If it means, okay, I'm going to give you a voucher, that absolves me of it, but there's no childcare to take the voucher to, does that meet President Biden's edict? We think not, but it's going to play out as it does. One other thing I really want to, so you can see some of the reach that Build the Future has going on. We've been working on a bipartisan, supporting two pieces of federal legislation. One is a bipartisan piece of legislation with Ro Khanna and Nancy Mace, and they have a childcare caucus around nobody pays more than $10 a day for childcare. Now, we all know what's going on at the Fed, so nobody get excited, but it's good to see bipartisan work around this. The other one is Adam Schiff has a piece of legislation to modernize Head Start. Our own Angelica Ramos wrote the piece of legislation, a part of it anyway. And so we're very excited about this piece because what it does is, well, why don't you tell me what it does? Just quickly, the top line.
So it just aligns the federal, like, you know, the eligibility to other programs like the Children's Health Insurance Plan, SNAP benefits. So if you're eligible for that, you should be eligible for Head Start, and that's the biggest, broadest, most important thing. And they also put money. They want to also put money into forgiving student loans for early Head Start educators.
Currently, if to receive Head Start, to receive the Head Start program for your child, to qualify today, you have to make $28,000 for a family of 4. I really don't know anyone. How can that happen? So we're really excited about that piece. Now, again, it's in a place where I'm pretty sure it's going to take a minute and a half times 10 to get through. But it is the part of what Build the Future is doing at all the levels. We're talking to it everywhere we can. It's not one person's responsibility. It's all of our responsibility. And it certainly is for us that are charged with our cities, our children, and our families. So Monsi, how about the ask? And then we'll be ready for questions.
Great. Last slide.
Last slide.
So we have 3 all pretty easy things that we want to ask you all to do to be a part of our work on Build the Future. So we can start with this QR code. Everyone wants to pull out your phones, scan it real quick. It'll take you directly to our website and to a form where you can sign up to get our updates. So, you know, it's an email once in a while, every week or 2, and you'll hear about some of the things that we're working on, get some of our messaging. We've produced, is it 10? 10 fantastic short videos, again, highlighting all of these different perspectives about why childcare is so important. So we have a provider, we have a homeowner, we have a small business owner, again, talking about the sheriff, how it affects them or why they feel connected to this issue. And, you know, I think either Wendy or Angelica mentioned this in the beginning, is a lot of folks just feel like that isn't my problem. Like it's just in that time period where you have young kids and you're thinking about it, but before or after, folks feel really distant from it. Just like, you know, well, the parents need to figure that out, even though the way it's set up is just not possible for all of us and is impacting all of us. So, you know, I'm happy to be that person, doesn't have kids, I don't want kids, but I think this is really important. So yeah, please sign up. You'll get our updates.
The second thing is, and you can also go there from our website, is follow us on Facebook and Instagram, whatever platforms you use. And again, you'll continue to see updates from us. Using digital media and digital organizing is a big part of our strategy right now because it does allow us to reach folks all over the county and reach all of these people that are not thinking about childcare yet, offer them all these different perspectives. So we would love your help amplifying our content. That helps us reach more folks again and continue to build momentum, kind of circles around, bringing people back to our website, get signed up, and really building a broad base of support across the county for investment in childcare. And finally, as cities, the most important thing, we all want you to pass resolutions in support of public investment in childcare. So this is something we've already started working on at a few cities. Some of them are being introduced in the next few weeks. And again, this is just a show of support. As you heard Wendy talk about, this is something that cities have a deep stake in, is impacting all of the folks in our communities, and will help bring the issue to the forefront, help make sure all of our elected officials across the county are thinking about childcare, kind of understanding why it's so important, and help us continue to build momentum. So if you haven't already talked to one of us or someone else from Build the Future about a resolution, we would love to get that conversation started. We have a draft we can send you, and we will support you through the process of getting it passed. It's also a really exciting opportunity for us to bring in the folks we're working with, whether that's families who are struggling to find childcare, providers, small business owners, to be a part of this process, to come give public comment, and also grow their leadership as we build our movement. Thank you.
Last two things. We have two events coming up in January.
No.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Angelica, you're frightening. She's the charge of one of our events. We have one event that we're working on that we are going to find a date for. We hope in January. What does she look like? February, okay. That joint venture Silicon Valley is going to be hosting, that is to bring leaders, but Adam and Roe and other business leaders to a childcare symposium where they'll lead us through some conversations around why it's important. And so we're really, really grateful to Silicon Valley leadership. The other event that I don't know if you all know, but in Alameda County, they passed a revenue measure that actually was for childcare. It took them a long time, so we learned a lot of lessons. But in the process, Parent Voices was the lead agency. They filmed them through the years, all of the process that it took, and they created a documentary. It's called Clarissa's Battle. And so Clarissa's the CEO of Parent Voices Oakland and a single mom. And this was incredibly important. And so it's been in all the movie festivals in Ireland. It's been everywhere, Washington, D.C. And so we're bringing it to Santa Clara County at Mission College. Mission College is one of our partnerships. They just instituted free childcare for all employees at Mission College, and they are opening their brand new child development lab. And so we'll be screening it and having a panel, which you'll all get invitations to in their beautiful theater.
You can send it to me and I'll.
January 20th.
January 20th.
That one is in January.
Yeah, see, because I'm in charge of that one, I know.
I'm sensing something here, but I won't go there.
The reason is she's working so hard with the representative schedules.
I know. So thank you all so much. We are going to open it up for questions. We'll start with the mayor.
Great presentation, by the way. Thank you. It seems like, and you've got a number of things that we can all do, but ultimately what it sounds like, we need more child care facilities and more funding for parents who have kids. So what is it the cities can do then with regards to that? I mean, I can follow you, I can do all those kinds of things, but that's really not the answer to the problem. And we could even maybe work to, incentivize people to start child care facilities, but what's the reason they're not? Why aren't, we lost 600 of those facilities. Why are they not going back into this?
So there's this, because our system is complicated, everybody has to do something. It's not like it's all on cities, but there are pieces you can do. So one, prioritize it so that it gets the public attention that it needs, right? It needs all of us saying, whoa, we need our cities to thrive. We want to have these great, and our problem, one of them is childcare in this high cost county. So that's really, don't underestimate that part. That's really important. We're doing that with all the elected.
Totally get
Second,
it. Yeah, exactly. But
one of the things is if you look at your own, how businesses have to go through the process of getting their license, childcare providers seem to have a hard time in cities getting through the planning department's structure. These are usually, one person trying to open a facility in their home. And so if you're interested in seeing how your own city does it, we'd also come and help and talk to your city's planning.
But I guess so, what I can say, I mean, I get a lot of phone calls about, hey, this isn't moving fast enough. I haven't gotten one phone call from a childcare facility provider.
So I'll tell you.
So I guess what again is how do we incentivize people that may not be incentivized to begin a childcare business? Is there something around that?
It's going to take money. And the bottom line of it, of the whole thing is we're going to have to figure out how to make sure that business model works. Right now, the business model of childcare doesn't work. Parents can't afford the fee they have to charge. And if they charge what they are right now, they can't pay their staff. So the business model itself doesn't work. And so part of it is we need to work on, the feds have to kick in, the state has to kick in, cities and municipalities have to think about it. Can we do childcare for our own employees to show governments ahead of the game, saying this is how we're going to do it? Our city employees will have it.
Do you guys have any, I mean, what are some estimates that for an average number of children, what are the costs of that for a city or a business or a state government?
Sure. We think if we did a revenue measure in Santa Clara County, it'd be about 140 million a year to fill the gaps.
Okay.
I think that Google could write a check.
No doubt, yeah.
It's not that much for them. And they're coming here, by the way, cities. They want to be with us. So that's another thing cities can do. You can require any new business that opens has to figure out the impact of childcare and then pay into a fund. Any way we want to think about this that provides childcare for bringing new people into our city.
It's gonna be challenging.
It absolutely is.
Because we all want businesses and we're not going to put roadblocks to getting them. So I think that's one option. I think we need to think of all.
That's what Build the Future is really about, though. That's why I can't give you one specific.
Sure, that makes sense, yeah.
It has to be kind of this, we're trying to build a really big tent and say, here's the problem.
Yeah.
Now let's figure out how to solve it because it is good for everyone.
Yeah.
And we will invite all of the city leaders, all of you all and your city managers. We know that we actually have, we'll invite you to our symposium with joint venture at Silicon Valley and all of the, it's really a business symposium and so that way we can have this open discussion and see if we can massage some new ideas out of it, right? But what I will say is that the city of Mountain View will be putting a resolution on their agenda next month. But Kimbra McCarthy, who is the city manager, has attended some of our convenings. We invited her, of course, because we know that their city council has made it a priority to do something, right? And so they're looking at how they can, provide ways to get people to work and work with their economic development department. And so that, we know that that some city managers are also having discussions around it for their own employees.
Okay.
Great question, Mark. And speaking to city leaders here, just hearing, in addition to the three things that we can start doing tonight, just hearing specifically how it is we can support this effort. So you've already given us, I think, 3 or 4 ideas just sitting there, and I'm sure we could brainstorm many more. So this is very helpful. And I know we have Ned here, the city manager from Milpitas. So it's good having a city manager hear this directly.
I would say that Milpitas actually has done some steps towards this already. One of the things they did was first 5 through funding of the county built an apprenticeship program for childcare workforce. Our mayor said, hey, I want some of those seats. how do we get in there? And so they bought some seats and we ended up, because we have no workforce, as you can imagine. And so they ended up picking out and going through a process for 18 months where those folks went through credentialed through the State Department of whatever the department is right now. I can't think of it. It's late. Yeah, thank you. So that they're actually apprenticeships. And what happens was that was a business, county, and city relationship and First Five. What happened is the business that wants the staff gets appointed somebody, they go through the apprenticeship program. They are in that classroom or in that program working at a certain wage. When they graduate, they get $1 raise an hour and they stay with them and they're credentialed through the Department of Education. They bought seats. I mean, so there's lots of ways to do some things that everyone's working on. Certainly the 15 million around facilities that the county's got out there is really another way to stimulate some of the work.
And Mayor Turner, I think you used to be the associated with the chamber in your city and
another city. Yep.
Yes.
Gilroy, yeah.
And, another city.
Yep. That's okay. Hey, regional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all kumbaya.
That's right.
So we would be happy to have discussions, especially in South County where there is a large need with the business associations there and chambers and see what ideas they could have, in terms of how we can solve for this together without, putting up roadblocks to businesses.
Give me information about that symposium. I'll make sure our chambers in South County attend and others as well.
Yeah, so once I get a date, I will happily send it all over.
Be helpful. Yeah, thank
And
you.
with that, we do have to move on.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Very helpful. Keep up the great work. I think this is great. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item. And we have mentioned it a couple times already, which is our JPA formation and update. And I do want to pick up on what President Abakoga said and just congratulate all of us and big
Good job, by the way.
Thank you, thank you. We are now the founders. Every single one of us is a founder of the Citizens Association JPA. And this is something that, our leaders have been trying to do for years and we did it. And I really want to applaud it. This is I know we still have 3 cities to go, but we hope they will join us soon, definitely before January 1st. But congratulations, thank you all. And with that, I will turn it over to our Citizens Association attorney, Jani Quinn, to walk us through what happens next.
So hopefully the 3 cities will choose to join. I think the immediate next step is for Andrew and I to drop an execution copy and circulate that to the city. So Shali is going to keep track of who's authorized in each city that has approved joining the JPA so that we can have an execution copy and we can circulate that for signatures. And we have a little bit of pre-work to do to make sure that the JPA is ready to operate, and that is to ensure compliance with requirements in the Joint Exercise of Powers Act, which requires a few things. One is that the officials who have any interaction with the assets of the JPA are bonded. And so we're working with some other JPAs to find out how they do their bonding and how much it is. My initial understanding is it's not going to be a significant amount of money, so that's good because we don't want any budget issues. Then we need to complete the paperwork so that we can file the registration form with the state along with the executed copy of the JPA. So that'll be on file with the Secretary of State. It only costs $1 to file that piece of paper. And then we need to double check how we do our accounting because we need to have a certified public accountant actually do our accounting, or one of the member agencies could do that if we don't have a certified public accountant. So we'll be working with Shali on that as well. And then also investigate, we had talked to some risk pools. And they said they would be interested in talking to us if we were a JPA, but not as an unincorporated association. So we'll be working with them to find out what kind of insurance is available and bringing that toward the board. The next item after this is actually elections for the unincorporated association, but you're going to want to have elections for the JPA and and do those slots. So we'll put forth a procedure how to do that. We have told the individual councils, and it seems that there are some recommendations from individual cities that they would like some more clarification, and we're gonna put those in the bylaws. So one of the first items of business is going to be to take the existing bylaws for the unincorporated association and present them to you along with a list of the issues and items that were brought up by the cities as we were bringing the JPA to them for approval. And then Andrew and I will be wordsmithing the bylaws and bringing them back to the board so that they can approve them. January is when you have your city selection committee meeting, and so we'll have that meeting as the unincorporated association. And so we're looking at February 1 to really start the official commencement of the JPA. And we'll probably be bringing some agenda items back to you in January and take direction from the board about how best to proceed. And we'll give you recommendations, but ultimately how we proceed and when we proceed will be up to the board. Is there anything you want to add, Shelley?
No.
Questions?
So the bylaws are not gonna be done before business comes back to the JPA, to the association.
So
Should
that
it be
it's
the
the
bylaws first?
The JPA, as the JPA is gonna have to take action on the bylaws. And so one thought that we had is that Shelley could distribute the bylaws by email after this meeting. And so the board members could start looking at them.
Yeah, I think that was what I was kind of hoping to find out, the procedure, the steps. So as long as the bylaws is ahead of us getting into business in the new year, then that's.
And let me just pick up on that because I know where Lydia is going. So if everything goes as planned, we will have our JPA be effective February 1st. The first JPA meeting in February, the number one item that will be on that agenda is our bylaws. And we as a board will have a discussion about, do we want to form a subcommittee? Do we want a working committee, something at Chicago? How do we want to manage the bylaws process as we move forward? We've already gotten feedback from Palo Alto and other cities. So that will be the first agenda item, but we need to have the JPA be formed before we move to the bylaws. So that's the first, believe me, we have it. Bylaws, first meeting in February. Let's get it done.
Okay, and then after we look at the bylaws, come back, we have to take it back to the council.
Yes,
Yes,
each city.
of us will have to
each
take
city-
it back, right?
And that's something the board can discuss the timeline for the bylaws, because Palo Alto and I'm sure other cities will
Absolutely.
want to take the draft back to their councils. Others may not, but we want to factor in that review process as part of the bylaws process.
Very good, thank you. I just want clarity.
Yeah,
So by January, we should have a working list that we've heard so in January, we can provide the list of items that we've written up based on all of the council meetings that we went to and the bylaws, we can distribute the bylaws too. And then the proposal would be to dissolve the unincorporated association at the same time that the JPA is formed. So it would be kind of in a little bit of another world. And what we need to do is make sure that we can finalize all of the finances related to the unincorporated association and probably discuss with the board too, for those members that are going to move from the unincorporated association to the JPA, simply move the funds over. For those who choose not to, then we would need to refund that and make a full accounting and make sure we can close the one books and start the new books.
I'm hoping we don't have that issue. It all fits.
That's true.
Any more questions?
Should we also be approving budget immediately and maybe even approving contracts? Because it's a completely new organization. So contract with our executive director, all that seems like it should be done immediately.
It's a new entity.
Let's keep expanding our to-do list.
I know. Any other comments, questions before we close this? But again, thank you so much.
I just wanted to express my appreciation for Attorney Quinn and Charlie showing up at our meeting. It was kind of fun. Thank you.
Your meeting didn't go the latest, though. I think it was Santa Clara, Kathy. Was it midnight? Yeah.
Well, we got it done.
Well, you got it. You did. You were number 12. Thank you. Okay.
So I have a couple of questions. So I had submitted some questions for clarification. Have those been resolved already, or will they be resolved once we form bylaws?
Yes, and when we come to your city council meeting,
And I
we will
would
be
love that.
we will answer all those questions. We were prepared to. We will. We'll make sure you have your questions answered.
And one more thing, so does this JPA also allow us, in the past, we had we had sponsored the roundtable. Are we still going to be doing that, or we're not gonna be doing that?
As the JPA, and Johnny, please correct me from, as the JPA, the new board, that board can decide what initiatives or committees or roundtable group it wants to form. So JPA can still house a roundtable, for example, and it will be the board's decision.
Well, because that's what got us in this mess in the first place, so with the lawsuit. We'll be discussing that as well.
Okay. All right, thanks, Carmen, and I'll go to public comment. Thank you again. All right, so next we will have the vote for the unincorporated association's board of directors. And so this will be through February, because February we have to have a new election for the board for the JPA. And so there's a slate, a recommendation from the nominating committee, which consisted of Mayor Klein, Margaret, and Tina from Saratoga. The nominating committee has presented the slate, and so I'll turn it over to Larry and Tina, who are here, if they want to speak to the slate before we go to a vote.
Sure, I'll be very quick, so especially as we're past our normal hour. But the slate is similar to what we normally do as far as kind of a continuation of president, first vice president, second vice president, and a few other continuations. So the big thing is, of course, Nisa is president, myself as first vice president, Tina is second, Hung. Not here tonight, that's right. As secretary treasury, and then immediate past president. It's been kind of our standard addition to our board, which would be Margaret Abacoka. So, I think it's fairly, let's say it's our kind of our standard practice. And as we move to the new organization, we'll have to kind of reevaluate this and talk about a little bit more, as you saw. But this is, at least for the next for basically a month and a half of January and beginning of February.
So moved. Do we need a motion?
We need a,
You commit to giving good parties?
the president, talk to the
No,
president.
I love the fact that you asked the first VP. We do need a motion. We have a motion from Mayor Turner.
Second by Klein.
Second by Turner, and then second by Chavez.
And is there any public comment?
Any nominations from the floor?
That's right, thank you.
Seeing none, we'll move to the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you. Quickly move to number 6. We'll have the city manager's update. Anything, Christina? I do not have an update this week. Thank you. Thanks for being here. And then Shali will close this out with your update.
I just have a very brief update. So our holiday party is the same night as our meeting would have been, December 14th. It's going to be at the Adobe House in Mountain View. It's a very nice venue. Let's just keep an eye open for the invitation. I'm sending it to city managers and all city councils, and of course, our other local electeds.
Any questions for Shali?
What time did she say?
Oh, what time is
What
it?
time? Oh, gosh, sorry. The party will be at 7 o'clock, just like our meetings. I'm gonna see if you can come a little bit early if you want to make those.
Yeah, any conversation we have about moving our meetings to 6? I'll send that to you for a future agenda item. How's that?
Is that it, Shali?
That's it.
Okay, any public comment? I don't see any, thank you. And then as the incoming president, so starting in January, we will move our meetings to Los Altos. So we look out for the email with the information. Thanks to Mountain View for hosting us this past year. So
Further
thank
north,
you.
right?
Pardon me?
Further north, right? Yeah.
But you'll see beautiful
All the
parking.
more reason I'm gonna push for 6 o'clock start.
And with that, we will adjourn at 9. Oh,
I had one question.
Oh, go ahead.
So since we're gonna, it's a whole new group, APA, new bylaws, and I know with this group, we have, we meet at the president's city.
the president has the ability to choose where.
Okay, yeah, oh, because I was wondering, what, can we switch? I take turns with.
Mix it up. Okay, I like the suggestion. I will.
I'm just.
Sounds
And I actually
Morgan
thought
Hill,
of
maybe?
thinking about it.
Come on down to Morgan Hill.
I will mix it up. Campaign. Okay, with that, we will adjourn at 9:07 PM. Thank you, everybody. All right, thank you.
Your traffic is very, very good at this point in time.
Oh, of course, right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, coming here.
It would be at 8.
Then we go to the.
You know, we
Really?
can all take the
Period
train.
where they have lunch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, it's up to Morgan Hill as well, but it probably, you wouldn't get that.
Right, brother.
Yeah, yeah,
So
spend
I'm
the
fine.
night.